Hello and welcome to another Factorio Base tour. I'm Xterminator and I'm glad to have you joining me here today. And in this one, we're covering a very interesting base, in my opinion. This one was submitted to me quite some time ago by Derpumu, and I do want to give a quick apology to Derpumu that it took so long. They submitted this about mid-December, and I never, I didn't get around to it until now. But this is an absolutely awesome base for multiple reasons. This is a Megabase. It does 4,000 science of every science per minute. So 4,000 of every science per minute. As you can see here, it is working on mining productivity 94 currently, which is almost 250,000 science packs. Also, robot speed is done up to level 18. Pretty significant. And if we take a look at the production here to start with, you can see a fairly consistent about 3.8 to 4K science per minute here of all the sciences. And it's pretty impressive. Now, aside from the actual production, it's a very unique base for multiple reasons. You see here on our minimap that there's these things here. And believe it or not, this is actually extremely impressive. I don't know if they came up with this design themselves, but these are actually solar layouts. These designs here, and we'll look closer at them here soon. But it's really interesting. Now they do mention that they didn't really have UPS as a focus. Now I am getting 60 UPS. I am right on the verge, right on the edge of dropping below. You can see it drops a little bit below here and there. But overall, really quite impressive. So if we take a look at the map, check this out. This is, I have to say, in terms of aesthetically pleasing bases, this has got to be like higher up on the list. Probably top one or two most aesthetically pleasing bases I've ever seen. Now, it is kind of all on a diagonal, as you can see, which may, rub some people the wrong way. It's actually kind of trippy looking at it. Normally, I'm not a fan of like diagonally placed things, but they've made this work so well. And how they've done this, and this is actually, I think, a very interesting but very legitimate way of doing megabases, and perhaps one of the most efficient, is having multiple cells, replicated cells, producing every single science. So these each produce 336 of every single science per minute. Some people divide the cells into like just one cell or multiple cells just doing red science, and then others doing just green science, and others doing just blue science, etc. What Derpumu's done here is made it so that each one of these is identical and each one produces every single science. And we're going to look obviously very close at these, but I just want to show you. Also, these rails are quite interesting, using, it looks like 1-6 trains, 1-4 trains. And they're really quite quick. They're on nuclear fuel. And you can see the sheer scale of this base, just considering these are 5-length trains, a loco and 4 wagons, and you see how small they are compared to everything else here. It's pretty ridiculous. Now, I am on the latest version of 1.0 or 1.1, so we actually have the new train menu where we can see here that there is nearly 600 trains on this map. And if we actually click on stations, this kind of showcases the new train menu as well. We can see like all the trains going to these stations. It is, I think, utilizing the train stop limit fairly well. But let's take a look here. So this is the kind of bus robot based mall, I suppose. You can see like some of every inserter, chests, belts, etc. Everything made here. Some of its belt based are of course bots moving things around as well. This looks like potentially a wood burner. Yeah, this is a wood burner, so it's kind of just consuming a little bit of power from this just to burn any wood that ends up in the system. It's again very nicely arranged. These it even says mall here. These concrete designs are really fascinating. It always kind of blows me away to see this type of stuff. And then we have some trains here. So these look like Outpost building trains. I'm not 100% sure why there's light oil, maybe for flamers. They actually look like Outpost repair trains. Now that I look at it closer, because we have robots, repair packs, walls, and lasers, and then this would be for flamers. And then over here, excuse me, this is like a solar building training, roboports, cliff explosives, solar panels, of course, robots, accumulators, etc. This has some artillery shells in it, so on and so forth. And it's really pretty awesome. So some materials are trained in here. Most materials are, we have steel here, stone here, and this just makes everything. This is our quote-unquote little mall. It's actually quite large, but in comparison. Now, let's look at these solar designs before we look at the base, because, these, I'm sure you guys are fascinated. I was blown away when I saw this. I thought this was concrete initially, but this is actually a solar build. Now, up close, it looks pretty bad. Like, I don't know if bad's the right word. It doesn't look like anything special. It looks kind of just thrown together and just messy. And a lot of times these type of art things will up close, so looking at this, it doesn't look like super impressive, but when you zoom out, the fact that it turns into this is absolutely awesome. I love this so much. It's like all kind of botanical flower designs here. And, we have the I love the water. The polluted water makes it even better, actually. And then water's left here with these. It's really, really cool. This is actually a big part of this base. And then in the production areas, of course, we have this circuit board design here with all of this going through it. And again, up close, doesn't look like anything super special or impressive. But when you zoom out, it just goes so well with everything. Now, if we're in a Spidertron here, loaded with nukes, so I really, I should, honestly, I'm going to just take those out. I really don't want to nuke this base on accident. So you can see it says destination is full, so Derpumu is using this train stop limit for this. Quite a few conditions on these trains as well. And if we take a look, this is powered by 708,000 solar panels and 604,000 accumulators. 25 gigawatts of power being consumed / produced here. 3 terajoules of accumulator charge, and we can kind of just look here. There's over 20,000 beacons, 5,000 furnaces, over 2,000 assemblers, and 8,000 lasers. 240 labs for this, and the roboports there's only 206 roboports, which is really quite interesting, because this is basically all belt based in these actual production cells. These junctions are super cool. I really, really like these junctions. They seem to work quite well. Looking around, I don't see any sort of train jam or anything like that. Everything seems to be flowing quite nicely. This is interesting. We'll look at that a little later. Even more solar designs here. Some different type of solar designs with these like massive highways of trains going through. And these are like iron loading outposts, it looks like here. And they're just being picked up. So iron's being delivered maybe from the outpost. Looks like some sort of transfer system. Because look at the size of this solar. Like, look at the size of this compared to these trains. This is ridiculous. And then, of course, we have our outpost. So one interesting thing is Derpumu is actually doing smelting at the outpost. And I think this is a very legitimate, very viable way to do things. It's actually more efficient. Because trains can hold more plates than they can ore, twice as much actually, because plates stack to 100 and ore stacks to 50, meaning that transporting plates, smelting here and transporting plates is more train efficient and just efficient in general than transporting ore and then smelting it and then transporting it somewhere else. So this is really, really well done. I think, again, all belt based. These patches are quite rich. They did not, as you can see, this is a very natural map. Didn't really use anything to like spawn in ore patches or anything like that. A few very simple mods were used. I think the main mod that was used was explosive excavation, I believe is what it's called. And that's just to remove ore patches, actually, just to make the base cleaner. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think most of us can agree that building on ore patches is not a very appealing thing. But let's look at these production cells, shall we? So let's start from the edges. We have our delivery of copper in this case, and it is flowing around, and it looks like it just circles around the entire thing, which is not a concept I've really seen very often, or at all that I can think of. It's like a circular bus, and it just circles back on itself. As you can see, this is coming from the other direction. And I think it's just literally circling around the entire base. So it's delivered here, comes around counterclockwise, and is split off where it needs to be split off. We'll look at the actual production here shortly. And then copper, same with iron, obviously. And then stone is delivered here, same type of deal. Circles around, some radar, and then steel is delivered here with coal. The iron is delivered here. I somehow missed that. There's actually double the amount of copper as there is iron. Another interesting thing is they're doing their quote-unquote bus 6 wide, which, since it's all blue belts at this point, is fine. The main reason to do 4 wide for a normal main bus is because you start with yellow belt, and yellow belt can only reach 4 tiles on the undergrounds. So for blue belt, which can obviously reach farther, doing it wider I think is totally fine. And let's look at the production now. So all fully beaconed. From what I've looked at, there is a combination of 12 beacon and 8 beacon layouts here. So these, for example, are 12 beacon, and we know it's fully beacon because there's 16 effect sources. So 4 of those would be modules in the machine, and then 12 are from the beacons. So these are fully beaconed, and it's using a combination of like direct insertion pass-through of the chest and belt. And I think the reasoning for this probably is the fact that maybe this just can't transport it quick enough just using one here. Other than that, I don't really see a reason to be doing this because it's just extra inserters. But I would assume, this just can't keep up here if we were to remove these belts. And this worked quite well. Belts are very optimized at this point in Factorio, so not really an issue here. And this is transporting here, and then obviously the iron is coming in as well. And if we look, let me find some more circuit builds. So here's circuit. So this is it's actually kind of interesting. It kind of just weaves around here. Initially, I thought maybe it just splits off for everyone, but you can see this iron, for example, comes through here and weaves underneath this to supply this machine. And that's all it supplies, but it weaves through all this, and then like another one comes through here and supplies this machine, and then this one is actually coming in from another direction. So I think this is why they have the iron circling around, because this was needed to be able to get the iron actually to everything that it needed to go into. Excuse me, because if it just went around and stopped, then, this type of thing wouldn't really work, or they'd have to be weaving it through the whole base, which is not ideal. So we have some circuit production, and then, again, everything seems to be moved by belts, which is really quite impressive, being able to route things where they need to go. The design, time and effort and thought that went into this is actually pretty ridiculous in my mind. Being able to come up with a design that it works like this with everything in belts and everything placed all like this, and then actually being able to route things where they need to go is really impressive to me. So this makes every single science. I don't think we need to necessarily look at every single build, like every single item build. Most of us know what goes into the science. So everything that goes into science is made here. Oil, of course, is here, and then oil products, blue circuits and stuff, direct just belted in like that, and red circuits here, and then plastic. Again, just like the thought that had to go into this, to like make this right here, just be like, well, need red circuits here, and then we need to get green circuits to those, and these need to also then go to blue circuits, but then these need to get plastic, so we need to put the plastic here, which then needs to get coal from somewhere, and then have petroleum right in, etc. It's like, this is pretty crazy to me. This is very impressive in my mind. And it's all just belted where it needs to go. Some rocket control units, obviously the rocket right in the middle, and surrounded by some nice polluted water. Obviously the water was not polluted to begin with, but it's unsurprising that it is now. And then the labs, each cell has its set of labs here. Now everything is one grid, so I would assume, just checking, assume all the labs are here. So we could measure the amount of labs simply by just taking this as a blueprint, and we can see that there are 20 labs. So that would be 20 labs per cell. There are 12 cells here in this base that produce 336 science a minute. So 12 times 2 would be 240, which theoretically should work out, and it does. Well, it moved, but there we go. And yeah, so this makes red science, green science, blue science, military science, purple science, yellow, and space science here, as you can see. This is outputting it here, and this looks like this has some smarts on it, which makes sense. It's basically just limiting the insertion of satellites based on how much space science is in this chest so that it doesn't over launch. So probably, I would imagine it's inserting a satellite once this drops below 1,000 or hits 1,000, which makes sense. And then it all goes into here. Now, these are not actually working. It looks like one of the science, it looks like yellow science here is actually a bit of a shortage. So if we do find, here's purple science being made. Let's take a look. I'm really interested at this point. Let's see. So this is missing brain freeze on what it takes here. It takes processing units, flying robot frames, and so it looks like it's missing processing units is what this guy is actually short on. You can see here that there's a little bit of struggle with this, and this does seem to stop I saw it stop for a second there. It looks like a green circuit problem. So this does stop for a minute or two, but still, well, I say a minute, for a second or two, but it's still cranking through science. I mean, keep in mind, this is a 250,000 science research, and this just started when I started the video, and we're already 30% done with it. So, I mean, this is working. You know, if we do look over, say, the last hour, and let's see if we can isolate. I'm interested in isolating all the sciences. It does even out, though, if we look. So it looks like we're missing military here, but that one may not be produced at the same rate because there's not as much military research. But you can see this all evens out. All these over the last hour are 4K. 444, the space science and purple science is actually slightly more. And if we look, space science fluctuates, of course, because it has to do with rockets, so it only produces the science when the rocket's launched. It makes sense. That's why that one fluctuates so much. But all the others are a very, very, almost nearly straight line. Little bit of fluctuation in there, but overall it evens out 4K science a minute. If we look at 10 hours, yet again, and this is how you really tell if a base is like truly X science per minute. You can't just necessarily look at the like 1 minute production. If you look over, I'd say 10 hours or longer is a good time to look. Even 1 hour is maybe a little short. And if we look over 10 hours, all of these are 4K science a minute, except for purple, which slightly there may have just, you can see this dropped here basically to off. Maybe ran out of something. Derpumu said there were a few issues they fixed. So this maybe was it right here, actually. And then again, military is very low, just because they're not doing very much military research. It's primarily the mining prod and robot speed. So we can look there. Let's reset this, and while we're here, let's look at the all-time production. 1.7 billion iron produced, 2.5 billion copper cable, 1.6 billion copper plate, almost a billion green circuits, almost 200,000 red circuits, 200,000 steel nearly, 88 million rail, 32 million blue circuits, which is really quite impressive. And then if we look at science, about 27 million of all of the main sciences here, which is a lot. And this is just super, super cool. I really, really like this. The aesthetics of everything to me is just so pleasing. Like, yes, it's on a diagonal axis and stuff, which normally throws me off, but they've done it in such a way where it all works so perfectly together. Like, everything just works. It's just so it's just so aesthetically pleasing to me, at least. I absolutely love this. It is really a masterpiece. I think is the term I'm really looking for. This is a masterpiece, both in its production and visually, and it's just build style and everything and art, it's really quite amazing to me. Just everything looks good. The junctions look good. The production written underneath looks good. All the circuit board designs on the production just fit so perfectly. You can even see Roman numerals numbering the production cells going clockwise: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 at the top. And to top it off, because there's 12, it aligns with the hours on a clock. 12 is at the top where 12 is on a clock. 6 is at the bottom. These align 3, 6 with a clock face, which obviously may have been very obvious to some people, but I'm just mentioning it. It's because I didn't notice the numbers right away. That kind of triggered my brain. Since there are 12, it's just like everything just clicks into place. The whole like botanical flower plant theme on the panels and stuff in here is so cool. It's like a star theme on here. And there's no need to really look at each cell because they are all exactly the same. Like literally even like where the drop-offs are, everything is the same. Which some people may find boring, but I think enough flair has been added to this where it's not. And I mean, this is a very viable, very efficient way to build a Megabase, is having a cell that just makes X amount of science per minute and then just making multiple of them. I kind of want to just sit here and look at this junction for like 30 seconds. It's just super satisfying to see these trains whiz through here. Definitely on nuclear fuel. The speed that they're going through. And, man, this is just... this is just such a cool base, guys. And, 2 trains passing in the night there. You can see there's like a turnaround here. So they are using single-headed trains. Which makes it even more interesting. I personally have a bit of a hard time building single-headed train systems. I just, my brain doesn't really work that way. So it's cool to see they made it work. It's a very viable way to play. A lot of people play that way. But now, last things I want to look at, I do want to check out what is going on some of these outpost things. So this looks like, what is this? This looks like a transfer station. So it looks like there's transfer stations. Again, because they're doing the smelting at the outpost. Instead of bringing the trains directly in, they have like a storage hub, and they're transferring them. So like this is steel and coal. The other one was, if we come down here, this one's copper. This mass amount of belts of copper here. This one is iron. Now I'm not 100% sure the reasoning for this. It's basically doubling the amount of trains required. Whereas if you just sent the trains from the outpost to the science, instead of this, you would have the number of trains potentially. Maybe not quite, because you'll probably need extra trains to make up for the travel distance. I would imagine this is maybe just to keep production smooth, or for train routing, although I don't really think so. It's, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. Another possibility, because I did something like this on my 4K science per minute base, a transfer system like this kind of, at least in my smelters, is it's to keep the networks clean. From what I can tell, these are separate train networks. We do have this set of lines going through the middle, but from what I'm noticing, there's not any like material carrying trains moving up and down these. They're all on these outside lanes, outside from the center two. And from what I can tell, this network, this whole train thing where these are moving, is its own thing. It does not connect to this internetwork here. And honestly, probably that's the main reason for doing this. It's keeping these clean instead of having like tons of trains moving into here from the outpost, trying to like throw them in through this one junction here. Maybe that's the reasoning. Again, though, it is double the trains. I feel like the amount of trains coming from here is about the same that would just be from coming from the outposts. This is not really a criticism. It's mostly I'm just curious what the exact reasoning behind this was. If you guys have thoughts, leave it in the comments. I would say it's probably to keep things a bit cleaner. Maybe just keep production smoother, because you have this storage system that can kind of act as a thing to smooth it out, because it's being kept full here in the and the trains can just come in and fill up really quick and don't have to travel, travel a super long way. So that would be my guess. It obviously works. It obviously works great. And then if we look here, I'm not, this is just stuff, I guess maybe this is where radars and stuff are, these designs here. We have a solid row of laser turrets basically around this huge perimeter wall. So I would say that it's not on peaceful mode. Also, artillery outposts, you can see the artillery exploration here. I mean, you can look how big, like I am zoomed out 100%. I'm zoomed out as far as I can go without a command. And this is, by the way, this is like a star shape kind of, which is just, well, the lines disappear as I zoom out. But yet again, even the wall is an aesthetically pleasing shape that goes with the rest of the base. It just blows me away. Really does. There's actually an inner wall, which is really quite smart. This maybe was the initial wall and then expanded out. And then we have our artillery outposts here. Dragon's teeth set up here. Laser turrets all around. Obviously the artillery. And then flamers, which is what those trains we saw in the beginning with the light oil were for. As you can see, fighters attacking. But yeah, the artillery's been pushed out, and they are getting their ore from down here. So far out, because the ore is really rich, so, you know, it's approaching, you know, 70, 80, 100 mil on some of these probably. And that's kind of, yeah, so this one was definitely over 100 mil initially, I would imagine. And all the smelting is out here too, like we mentioned. All belt based. And yeah, so they pushed out this far, like 177 mil, just to get these really rich ore patches, and then pushed out the artillery even past this to clear any biters that might be here. Just overall, I really am quite impressed by this base. Looking at, this is a random caveat, I'm really interested in the amount of artillery shells consumed. I imagine this must have taken a lot of artillery shells, just artillery fire and stuff to clear this many bases. 617 tank shells. 154,000 artillery shells. And keep in mind, this is consumed, not produced. Like, it's one thing to say produced and you just have 100,000 of them sitting in chests, but they've actually consumed 154,000 artillery shells. Pretty ridiculous, if you ask me. So definitely a long time. Also, I probably should have done this at the beginning, but there is 22 days, 14 hours, and 1 minute, 35 seconds of playtime on here. In other words, 541 hours, 32 minutes, and 59 seconds of playtime. That's a lot of playtime. Now, I'm guessing a fair bit of that was AFK, usually on these very large bases that have done a ton of research and have a ton of playtime. Usually a fair bit of the time is just AFK, which is okay in my opinion, you know, because, you know, once you get this running, like, it's at the point you want it to be, that you basically, to do research, you just have to AFK it. Like, you know, once you get these built and it's at the production rate you want, then kind of the point of the base is to just sit there and do research. Now, I do imagine that designing and building all these awesome designs and cells and stuff took a large amount of time. I would be very, very surprised and blown away if literally like all 500 hours were actually actively playing on here. That would be impressive. That would be very impressive. I would imagine maybe a couple hundred, maybe up to 300 hours or so were spent on this. I don't know. Derpumu maybe will probably enlighten us in the comments. But I think that's going to do it, guys. Overall, I love this so much. I said it multiple times. Super impressive. 12 cells, each one producing 336 of every science per minute. Awesome solar panel designs. Awesome everything aesthetically. It just, everything works so well. And over here, it looks like a stone transfer, by the way, and oil as well. So there we go, guys. I think that's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed. I really, really enjoyed this, and I wish I hadn't taken as long to look at it because, man, I was missing out. So there you go. If you did enjoy it, a like is appreciated. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What you think of this, and in regards to the aesthetics and design and production, anything like that, let us know. And if you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe to keep up with all the content. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.